The Facebook whistleblower. Perhaps most of you have already heard of this story. Former employee of Facebook, worked there for 2 years. Has come out and blasted Facebook for many reasons. I'm just going to play you a short clip from CNBC where they'll recap the situation and then we'll dive right into it. Shall we?
Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you. My name is Frances Haugen. I used to work at Facebook. I joined Facebook because I think Facebook has the potential to bring out the best in us. But I'm here today because I believe Facebook's products harm children, stoke division, and weaken our democracy. The company's leadership knows how to make Facebook and Instagram safer, but won't make the necessary changes because they have put their astronomical profits before people. Congressional action is needed. They won't solve this crisis without your help.
Okay, so what she's done effectively, she leaked a trove of files, internal Facebook documents, research, and more to the Wall Street Journal. And the Wall Street Journal, they want you to go subscribe before you can even read any of it, so you have to take their word if you don't have a subscription. But what's very interesting about this is that her testimony, because as you can just see, she testified in Congress, is being used for much more nefarious ends. I'll just play you another clip over here from, because, she's been receiving tons of media attention. She's everywhere, 60 Minutes, CNN, you name it. They say that Facebook is promoting hateful content because it's more engaging. So allegedly, because things that make people angry, things that are controversial, they draw clicks, they draw engagement, they draw users to the platform, and they keep users on the site longer. So that's what she's saying. And she's saying that Facebook knows this and willingly did nothing on purpose to, keep ad revenue going, to keep user engagement and growth continuing. And so other things she's mentioning, Instagram, for example, as many of you know, Facebook bought Instagram, Facebook bought WhatsApp. And, she's also saying that Facebook knows that Instagram is damaging for women because of, it makes them feel insecure about their bodies and things like that. And while the things she's saying are perhaps not entirely untrue, I want to point you to a brilliant piece over here from Glenn Greenwald. Okay, so you should go read the whole thing because we're just going to read parts of it here for time's sake. But it's a brilliant piece, and I want to read you something from that which addresses these things. Okay, so the title is "Democrats and Media Do Not Want to Weaken Facebook, Just Commandeer Its Power to Censor." Okay, and then the subtitle is "Whistleblower Frances Haugen is a vital media and political asset because she advances their quest for greater control over online political discourse. The social media giant, meaning Facebook, hurts America and the world, this narrative maintains, by permitting misinformation to spread, presumably more so than cable outlets and mainstream newspapers do virtually every week. Fostering body image neurosis in young girls through Instagram, presumably more so than fashion magazines, Hollywood, and the music industry do with their glorification of young and perfectly sculpted bodies. Promoting polarizing political content in order to keep the citizenry enraged, balkanized, and resentful, and therefore more eager to stay engaged, presumably in contrast to corporate media outlets, which would never do such a thing. And worst of all, by failing to succinctly censor political content that contradicts liberal orthodoxies and diverges from decreed liberal truth. On Tuesday, Haugen's star turn took her to Washington, where she spent the day testifying before the Senate about Facebook's dangerous refusal to censor even more content and ban even more users than they already do. So these are excellent points. I mean, there's no question about it. If you want to talk about these issues, and they're perfectly reasonable and important issues to bring up, what about the other places that promote these things even more, right? So if we're going to talk about, for example, how Facebook helps spread misinformation, are you really going to sit there and say that cable outlets and mainstream newspapers don't do that? When the Iraq War was about to begin, back in late 2002, although they were planning for this since 2001, but in the build-up to the Iraq War, 2002, 2003, there was no Facebook. There was no social media. That didn't exist. Every single news network, the BBC, ITV, Channel 4, Sky News, CNN, Fox News, you name it, the New York Times, Washington Post, every single day. Anthrax letters. Oh my God, Saddam is sending anthrax letters to members of Congress. Oh my God, we found his secret signature molecule in the anthrax. It's 100% Saddam. Oh my God, Saddam has weapons of mass destruction. No, he doesn't have weapons. He's giving them to Al-Qaeda too. Al-Qaeda will have weapons of mass destruction. Who is spreading this misinformation that led to the death of 1 million Iraqis, million more refugees? You could also add the deaths in Syria because it spilled over into Syria with ISIS. That's not misinformation. I think calling it misinformation is actually an understatement. I think it's being too kind. There was a Facebook back then. That doesn't absolve Facebook, right? 100%. It's not exactly the most ethical company in the world for other reasons, which we'll get to. But you're going to come here and tell me that cable news don't lie? What have they been doing for the last years about Russiagate? Lying through their goddamn teeth, day in, day out, this whole McCarthyite bullshit again. Are you're seriously going to sit there and say that Facebook is the number one source of misinformation? If you really care about misinformation, Facebook is not your number one worry. It might be a worry, but it's not your number one worry, right? It's not the reason that there was a capital riot. Like, they want to blame all the ills of the world on everything but themselves. And as Glenn points out in the article, which is, 100% right on the money, this is about 2016, right? Hillary Clinton, she loses the election, and the liberals, what do? Instead of looking inwards, self-evaluation, self-criticism, they just attack anything you can imagine, right? It's everyone else. Everyone else is to blame except Hillary. Everyone else is to blame except the liberal mentality and orthodoxies. Everyone else is to blame except the Democratic Party. It's Russia. It's Facebook. It's everyone. You posted a meme? Oh my God, you're working for Vladimir Putin. Like, it's fucking bananas. Insane shit. And so in their crusade, in their quest to censor any opinion that runs counter to what they believe in their quest for dominance, now that they control the executive, again, not just the White House, they control also Congress, both chambers of Congress. This is what they want to do now with this Facebook scandal. They don't give a shit about what Facebook does to teenagers or to people in general about their self-image, their body dysmorphia, whatever. They don't care about mental health or anyone's mental health. They care about using Facebook and using this scandal to their advantage. What does that mean? That means censoring opinions they don't like. Okay? So this is, come on, man. This is a textbook case of a government exploiting a crisis to do things that it wouldn't normally be able to get away with, right? So Facebook is already banning so many people. Instagram already banning so many people. And we'll get to that in a second. But, if you're concerned about misinformation, look at the corporate press. If you are seriously going to sit there and tell me Facebook, which again, Facebook is not perfect, but if you think Facebook is more dangerous in regards to misinformation than the corporate mainstream media, you're a liar. You are either an idiot or a liar, because this is empirically untrue. Okay? So the next point, right? Fostering body image neurosis with Instagram, right? The mental health issues, yeah, this is real. Like, we're not going to deny that, that could have an impact on mental health. No one is saying that's not true. But how is that worse than what you see in Hollywood? How is that worse than what you see in fashion magazines? Like, you walk outside and you see it in billboards. You see it like in posters. It's on television. You can't escape that. That's way more widespread and damaging, So once again, if you're really concerned about that, you would look at that industry, right? No? Just logically speaking, if you're concerned about the damage and you want to assess which one is causing the most, like which is the primary culprit, Hollywood, music industry, right? Fashion magazines, and promoting polarizing political content, right? In order to keep the citizenry enraged, balkanized, and resentful. Again, corporate media outlets. corporate media outlets, it's so good in the United States that they've managed to brainwash people into thinking they have two parties when it's like one party with two wings, right? That's how good they are at it, at keeping people enraged, and this tribal mentality, this toxic crap, right? They act as if Democrats and Republicans are better, one is better than the other. It's the same regime. It's the same corporations. It's one party with two wings, right? And my point is that even within that paradigm, they managed to make people think that, it's a two-sided thing, and it's incredible what you can do with television and radio. Their efforts, their abilities to divide the citizenry, to create, just as an example, with Russiagate, if you look at people like Rachel Maddow, if you look at Joy Reid, all these people in general who promoted this Russiagate crap, what happened now that Trump is not in office anymore? Their ratings are plummeting, right? They have no viewers left. So they were purposely, knowingly creating deceitful, angering content. They're lying, very, very plainly put. They were lying to keep people divided, to drive up ratings, to draw viewers. So again, that's permeated much more than Facebook could be. So if you're concerned about that, why aren't you looking towards cable news? You know why? Because the people who are making these critics are in cable news. It is the corporate media who's saying this shit. So of course they're not going to criticize themselves. They're the ones who are doing the same thing, and albeit to a much higher degree, right? If they celebrated whistleblowers like Chelsea Manning, Daniel Hale, who exposed murder, right? Who exposed state crimes, extrajudicial killings, mass murder, assassination, right? I'd love to see this kind of praise for them. I would love that. But they only celebrate whistleblowers when they align with their political objectives and orthodoxies. And so I just want to show you something else over here. This is again from Glenn Greenwald. He says, agitating for more online censorship has been a leading priority for the Democratic Party ever since they blamed social media platforms, along with WikiLeaks, Russia, Jill Stein, James Comey, the New York Times, and Bernie Bros for the 2016 defeat of their rightful heir to the White House throne, Hillary Clinton. And this craving for censorship has been elevated into an even more urgent priority for their corporate media allies, due to the same belief that Facebook helped elect Trump, but also because free speech on social media prevents them from maintaining a stranglehold on the flow of information by allowing ordinary, uncredentialed serfs to challenge, question, and dispute their decrees, or build a large audience that they cannot control. Destroying alternatives to their failing platforms is thus a means of self-preservation, realizing that they cannot convince audiences to trust their work or pay attention to it. They seek instead to create captive audiences by destroying, or at least controlling, any competitors to their pieties. This is 100% true as well, right? So, you have a lot of people who are growing successful in independent media. Alhamdulillah. You have a lot of alternative platforms that are growing. Substack is one of them. Rockfin is one of them. Rumble is one of them. Shout out to everyone who's watching on Rockfin. So, you have a lot of other places that are popping up to circumvent this big tech censorship, Silicon Valley censorship. Because when the government are pressuring these companies to censor opinions online, where are they hitting hardest? Where is the pressure coming down the heaviest? It's on Silicon Valley, companies like, Apple, Facebook, etc. And so, alternative platforms have a little more wiggle room, but that is at risk. And we'll get to that in a second, but you should really go read this article from Glenn, because he lays it out very succinctly, very eloquently, and explains how censorship has been a long-term goal now for the last, for the last years of Democrats, going back to 2016, to censor opinions online, right? And they'll use any excuse, whether it's Trump winning the election, the Capitol riot, Hillary Clinton's emails, damaging memes on Facebook, anything they could come up with. So this is another one of those scandals that they're exploiting. So again, let's say this very simply. What the whistleblower, or so-called whistleblower, Haugen, is saying about Facebook is not necessarily untrue. The problem here is that Democrats, the government, are exploiting this scandal or these revelations, not to improve these problems that she's talking about, but to take over Facebook and other big tech companies for their own benefit. Do you understand what's going on here? So that's a very, very important distinction and point to raise and to make. And another thing that is very important and noteworthy is that in response to all this, Facebook, what has Facebook said? Facebook said, okay, you know what? Go ahead. Enforce new restrictions for censorship or whatever, for data control, for verifying misinformation, however you want to call it, right? And we'll comply with them. And at first, you might be thinking, well, okay, that doesn't sound too bad. Facebook is complying and they want to tackle this problem. No. What that means, the consequence of that, is that only Facebook and only Google and only billion-dollar tech companies will be able to comply with these regulations because they have money. They can afford to hire armies of analysts or whatever, misinformation warriors, whatever the hell that you want to call them, right? They'll be able to comply with these censorship or anti-misinformation regulations because they have the money to do it. Other smaller companies like Substack, Rockfin, whatever, Twitter even, as Glenn points out, they'd be drowned by these requests. They wouldn't be able to keep up. And so this would effectively squash any competition. So you understand why that's so important to look out for, because it doesn't sound as good as they make it sound. It's about consolidating the market. It's about crushing competition and finding themselves in a position where they're the only ones able to comply with these requests, right? So they get to pretend like, we agree with you. We want to tackle these problems. Please put in some regulations that only we are able to afford and only we are able to comply with because of our billions and billions of dollars and resources. Very practical. Now, another thing that I want to raise here, because I think this is equally important and noteworthy, when they talk about Facebook's algorithm being damaging, right, and promoting hateful content and so forth, no one is criticizing the Facebook algorithm for censoring Palestinian voices. And it's not just the Facebook algorithm, it's the Instagram algorithm as well, because it's owned by Facebook. And this is something that they're doing platform-wide, right? So you remember we looked at this together, how Palestinian groups and activists, they had their posts taken down, and trying to document crimes by the Israeli occupation. Their accounts are locked. So this is, of course, not just something that happened now. This has happened. This is happening in May, this past May, during the onslaught against Gaza. But it also dates back to before that, even. But I just want to. We looked at this together a few weeks ago. But again, I want to just highlight it again. This is, for example, from May, from Quora. Why Twitter and Instagram deleted posts related to Israel's cruelty on Palestine's people or Palestinians, right? And then here, this is from October 8th, from Human Rights Watch. They say, Facebook censors discussions of rights issues, right? So they're censoring Palestinians mostly. They say Facebook has wrongfully removed and suppressed content by Palestinians and their supporters, including human rights abuses carried out by Israelis. And then here, for example, this is from the Washington Post. They say Facebook's AI treats Palestinian activists like it treats American black activists. It blocks them. And so when we talked about this a few weeks ago, I mentioned to you, because just to be completely clear, I never experienced any of the censorship, despite the fact that I talk all the time about the Israeli occupation in Palestine. That changed. That changed a few weeks ago because they took down one of my posts. This was incredible. I didn't even say anything. I just reported that about the 6 men who escaped from Gilboa, the 6 Palestinian men. I just posted that Hamas said there will be no more prisoner exchanges without those 6 men. It's not an opinion. I'm just reporting. I'm just telling you what was said in Arabic, right? I'm just telling you the news. They took it down. right? And even reviewed it and then confirmed that it should be taken down. Which is absurd. You cannot even say the name Hamas in a crystal clear, objective, transparent report. It's one sentence, just one sentence. Hamas have said that, there will be no more prisoner exchanges without the 6 men from Gilboa. So one way or another, they're going to be free, basically, but either by escaping or through a prisoner exchange. Right? And that's mild. That's mild compared to what other Palestinian activists and journalists have experienced. That's mild. Right? So just because I didn't experience it until now doesn't mean it wasn't happening. You get my point. It was happening, all right. And it's funny because once they got caught, Instagram and Facebook said, oh no, it's a glitch. Really? It's a glitch? Like as if they don't know what the fuck they're doing with their own platform. Why don't you have a glitch that deletes pro-Israeli content? How weird, right? How fucking convenient. It was just a glitch. Out of everything that's posted on Facebook, it just happens to delete things posted by Palestinians exposing Israeli crimes. How fucking convenient. Wow. What are the odds of that? They really think we're idiots. And so magically, they fixed it, right? All of a sudden, yes, now we know what the problem is. Yeah, we'll fix that. So I don't see anyone calling that out. Of course, as I just showed you, there's a headline here and there in the Washington Post. There's a few of them, like a dozen articles or something, but there's nowhere near the same amount of coverage as there is now. So you have all of these politicians in Washington, D.C. Oh my God, we have to take action because Facebook's algorithm is so toxic. Okay, well, why didn't you give a shit? Why didn't you care when Facebook was censoring Palestinians and covering up war crimes by the Israelis? Why didn't you take action then? Where was your outrage then? Where is the outrage now? Right now, where's the outrage? They're still not even talking about that. Right? So the politicians, the media, they're only outraged about things that, they can exploit and, exposing Palestinians, exposing Israeli crimes against Palestinians or against Syria or against Lebanon. That doesn't align with their agenda. So anyway, I just wanted to do a quick recap about that. And of course, always be on the lookout how the government is using these things to advance their agenda. And of course, we saw a few weeks ago how Jen Psaki, the White House spokesperson, she admits that the White House is working with Facebook to ban people, and not just on one platform, but everywhere. They want to deplatform people everywhere. And, like it says in the article, back then, they did it with Alex Jones and other people that, no one gave a shit. And if you said something like, yo, this is bad, you shouldn't deplatform people because then it could happen to one of us. Say, oh my God, are you supporting Alex Jones? Look where we are now. How many people do you know in leftist politics who've got their YouTube channel demonetized, who got their Twitter or something, taken down? A lot. It even happened to me. So this is a real thing. This is an actual problem. And the algorithm, as we know, it buries channels like ours, independent media, and favors corporate media. We know this. So this is a real issue. And just beware how they try to exploit this scandal now with Facebook and this whistleblower, to their own ends and to suit their agenda.